got good news and bad news. Good news is it's almost ready to hit the road. Just got a couple more things I got to do. Bad news is I lost all of the video clips of how I got to this point. So that's unfortunate, but it'll be alright. So I'm just going to kind of do an overview, show you where we're at, and then we'll carry forward and get this thing on the road. All I ended up using was the 90s. I'm kind of clocking them a little bit different. They're not at the same exact point. Part of that is because I had an idea of running a 3-inch pipe through here, but then I changed my mind, and it's actually going to end up running, you can see the outlet right there, it's going to end up running inside the bumper. I'm going to hole saw right here. It's going to come up, over, and to the throttle body. So that's why they're at two different places. I can't get it exactly symmetrical because the truck is not symmetrical. The engine sits over a good bit. You can see hood latch. You can see just how far over everything is. Look at the gap from the radiator at the bottom to the gap over here. This hole size versus that hole size. So original plan was I really want them further back and then have the inlets go to my hole in the scoop, but that's not going to happen. Oh, it's going to be alright though. I'll just make some things come in, put some filters right here, it'll be okay. Look at the driver's side. It's 90 up to the flange. I did put the Jeep power steering pump on. I'm going to have to still make some stuff. So let me get the light out. You see the inlet right there? The power steering hose, the pressure hose, I actually was able to just tweak a little bit and get it back on from the Dakota. The inlet hose, I'm gonna have to do a remote reservoir. I'm probably going to take the reservoir that was on it and just extend some hoses over here for now and just zip tie it for now, just so we have power steering. I'm going to have to make the piece to adapt that because it's made to bolt into it, not thread in. That piece is made to accept an O-ring, so I've got to figure out how exactly I'm going to make that, but I think I've got some round aluminum and I've got a lathe, so we'll solve that fairly quickly. Thermostat housing, where I had this thing coming over here, the hose ran right into the wastegate and the turbo, so I went and got this hose. I trimmed this leg just a little bit and I think it's going to work out just fine, but I had to order some steel to remake my thermostat housing. So I had a real tight 90 this way and then all 90 this way and weld it back together, and then this hose is done. Radiator hooked back up. That's what's really been stopping me from running it for a decent amount of time. The downpipes going to my original exhaust wasn't too bad. I've still got to get some lap band clamps for down there. I'm gonna leave it right there, because right now I can take this off, roll it over, and I can take the downpipe out on both sides without having to take the turbos off and do a bunch of crap. None of the 2.5-inch pipe kit I got worked. They were all just way too loose on the radiuses, just way too big. So I had to order more of these cast aluminum 90s real tight, and I've got the silicone couplers now that are long enough. Even the couplers weren't long enough. So I've got those now. I can put those on, and then the turbos are hooked to the intercooler. I borrowed a hole saw from work to make that hole, and then we should be able to make quick work of getting it ducted over to the throttle body. I've got to swap out this throttle body. This was one of my prototypes, playing around with different things and using routers, and before I made a mount so it's much more stable and easier to control, but before that I was just holding this on the table with the router bit spinning, and it grabbed a hold of it, ripped it out of my hands, put a hole in it, so I can't use that now. I mean, it wasn't great before, but for testing on the dyno I really didn't care. That little hole there, I don't drive this thing that much. There's the hole. So big boost leak, we don't want that. So I'll swap out throttle body 2, go get a piece of 1/4 20 all thread, and then I'll have to make an S bend because it threads in here. The center of the throttle body is here, but I need it to be tall enough to get through that carb hat now. Hey, Mira. So that'll solve that. My fuel rail has just been sitting there this whole time. I've had the clips on the injectors and I've never had a problem. But now that we're, you know, you're in vacuum or not under boost, so it's not been a problem. It doesn't spit it out. Probably a little dangerous, but it's made it this far. Now that we're going to boost it though, I'm going to actually have to put something on to retain the fuel rail from blowing up out of there. Also, these clips have held in fine. I've had other people say it spit the injector right out. It's been like this for a couple of years now, and I've had them in and out, no problem. Not recommending you do that. It's definitely safer to have something hold the fuel rail down. So there's just one more thing to figure out. I've got an oil leak on the backside. The oil lines, these guys, where it goes to the T back there on the sending unit. Let's see if I can get you back there. I had a problem with that leaking, but I got it resolved. But there's still oil coming from either the distributor or right in between the intake manifold and the cylinder head, right in that corner. I use the rubber ends. I've been a fan of those, and maybe you always silicone the corners, or I gray RTV almost everything in the corners, but it either didn't hold or the gasket for the distributor is maybe non-existent, because it's just slowly kind of pushes oil out of that corner. So I've got to figure that out. It does push a decent amount of air out of that valve cover, and that's the only vent it really has. So I've got another valve cover to clean up and put on the passenger side. That's got another vent, hopefully to help with that problem. I don't know what this was, but all it adds is the one vent and the one valve cover. So I want to vent the passenger side valve cover too. Eventually it'll get a catch can and all that good stuff, but for now it is what it is. What else have I got? This downpipe I swept up, got it around everything, and then once I got it in, it was touching the header and the steering shaft. It's touching the header right there and the steering shaft, so I made it and just wedged it in there, and then when I was done I marked it and smacked it with a hammer, and it clears just fine. The wastegates, I crossed my fingers. In order to weld these to the turbo housings, the exhaust housings, you're really supposed to do a lot of fancy stuff. Preheat it, do all this crap, and then put it in something to bring the temperature back down very slowly. I have also heard that just welded, it works fine. Now, I haven't actually checked to see if these are cast iron or cast steel. I'm leaning towards steel because it welded beautifully. I preheated with my propane torch just a little bit. I mean, just barely. And then used stainless filler, welded it. They hung on there. I heard that if it wasn't going to work, they'd pretty much break off while it was cooling down. I hit it with a hammer, it doesn't go anywhere. With the wastegates on, I hit it, it doesn't go anywhere. It may get hot and cold and crack off of there. If it does, it's really more of a science experiment. I've always figured out, if you know better, you don't get away with it. If you don't know any better, you get away with it. So I do know better, but I'm hoping we still get away with it, because that made life easier. This here, that one there. I've ordered more stuff. I'm eventually going to plumb it right back into the exhaust. One of the flexible bellows too, so it doesn't eventually crack loose. So at first I thought I was a little silly for running this pipe up and not down quicker. But now that's going to make getting this to here really easy, and this to here really easy. I originally thought I was going to run it out of the hood, but I don't want to deal with that. It'd be cool at night and in the morning, hitting rev limiter, shooting fireballs, but it'd be okay. What else is actually important? I think that's about it. Pretty much caught up. In this video, we're not going to get the wastegates plumbed in. We are going to get these boots on. We're gonna hole saw this. We're gonna get our intake ducting up to here, swap that throttle body out, put the carb head on, make some things to hold the fuel rails down, and we've also got to swap to the Honda 1.75 bar map sensor, which I'm hoping it'll work out just like when I did my Jeep. And we've got a drill and tap for the wastegate reference lines, and that's about it. Oh, let me grab the creeper. I'll show you the oil drain setup. See if I can fish this down here. I ended up not taking the timing cover off. I drilled and tapped. I used the grease method. I greased the drill, went a little bit, wiped it off, greased it again, went a little bit, and did the same thing with the tap. And just put some barb fittings in and clamped the hoses on. I think that was definitely saved time for not having to pull that off, and I really don't like those AN lines. I'd rather it be a barb and I can just clamp it on and be done. Alright, now we'll put the boots on to the intercooler. I'll get the hole saw, we'll make a hole, we'll plumb this, we'll fix up our fuel rail. We're going to borrow the map sensor off the Jeep because I got to pull apart late on the way home yesterday. Also, we need to extend where the fuse box is here. This used to sit over here. Now we're rolling it around, but everything's getting tight. I can't scoot it any further away. So I went and got another connector because we need to extend where this plug is. We need to extend this a bit. And I got some cable and some lugs. We need to extend the alternator cable so that this can get further out of the way. So that's one more thing. I also moved the battery to the back. It's just rigged up right now. I still got to figure out what I want to do for permanent. It's just sitting back here with some holes in there. I took some of the drain line and put it around the wire just to protect it from getting cut for now. Eventually I got to pull this off, put grommets in, and loom everything, but this got it running for now. In my Ram, I ended up putting a hole in the bed, and I sunk the battery down so you could put a lid over it, and that worked pretty cool. I really like that. I don't know if I have room for this, but it's not really what I'm worried about right now. I took the original battery hole down. There's already holes all over this bed, so I just drilled 2 holes, threaded it, and ran it in there so it'll hold it for now. Once again, not a permanent thing. Follows frame rail, follows the wiring harness, comes up, ties right back into the fuse block like it did before. And obviously it starts and runs, it's charging, it's doing all its stuff. We just have to extend some wires, get this zip tied over off the heat. Well, let's get after it.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with...
Boots are on there. I had to not use these. They probably fit good on a regular pipe, but these being cast aluminum are a little thicker, so I really couldn't even get but maybe half a thread started. And they're just too wide. These vibrant ones I actually don't like as much as I like the cheap ones. I think I got one here. I don't think I have a cheap one that's not on there though. Alright, set this here. The cheap one, Very sharp edge, nice and round. The vibrant ones is almost a radius to the whole bit of it, so you only have a little bit of area that's actually kind of, you know, squared off. Where this one, the whole thing, you can get a hose on that and a clamp really easily. Width of clamp and area that you have. By the time you try that here, you're in the midst of the radius and it ends up being really weird. So I had to ditch these, use a regular worm gear clamp that's thinner. I'm running low enough boost, it's not going to matter. I really don't think this would become a problem until like almost 20 something psi before things start blowing off, as long as it has a lip. So we'll be alright, but that's why we got rid of this and went to those. Now I've got the hole saw set in where we're going to cut. There's already a hole there that we're going to use for a pilot, so it might get a little wobbly.
They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
Easiest way to get the new one out without getting hit in the face.
Make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared. I walk a straight path, not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at any place that I go. I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb, and I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I will get back up, cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down, they wanna rise up while you drown.
Alright, charge pipe is done. 90 through the floor, or through the whatever, up and over, and hopefully the hood still shuts. It should. We should have plenty of room. Yeah, we're fine. So now there's lots of shavings and stuff inside the pipes. All this is cleaned out. I need to blow out the intercooler one more time, which I'll do by firing it up. These sat in the back of my truck, or my Ram, for years, so they're kind of cruddy looking on the inside. They look gross, so I got some stuff at the Harbor Freight. I hope I can rig up to make a decent pipe cleaner. Got this thing, it's a 1/4 inch drive, and I've got this flexible thing for bits, and then I got this adapter. Plan is tack this So that adapter, stick this in there and then pull that through the pipes from both ends as much as possible to get all the crap out of them. And then we'll be good to go. Swap out throttle body. Little modification, this worked. I had to trim down the outer diameter, but it gets the job done. Pretty good. Deep. That'll do it.
They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
Everything fits, bumper is back on. I think on the blow off valve, I think I'm going to mount it right to the end of the air hat. But I also saw the USPS lady drop off my next Amazon package, which is what we need to get the thermostat housing back together so we can get an upper radiator hose on it. And then I can run it for longer than 30 to 60 seconds. I'm sure I could run it longer than that, but there's barely any water in it. Alright, on the thermostat housing. This is what we had, and I had this hose going from here to there. When I had the supercharger on it, I just never changed it back. It's easier to work on. Obviously that's not going to work, so we've got this hose. So we need to cut that off, we're gonna have to cut this pretty low down, sink that, and then we'll have to cut it pretty shallow again, because we'll also make this shallow, and we're just gonna make this a little jog. So it'll come up just a bit and over, and we'll put this right back on. We'll use this and the base. Done. Let's get to it. Thermostat housing is welded and bolted back on. Turned out just fine. So hopefully I got it all sealed up the first time. If not, I'll take it back off and weld some more. So I think we're gonna go ahead and fill this thing up with water and just let it sit here. When I had it out, I noticed the thermostat didn't have any holes in, no even a little jiggle valve or nothing, so I gave it a couple holes to help bleed. We'll put water in it and let it run for a little bit. The old ported throttle body's on. I made my stud longer. I'll have to swap out the map sensor, but for now I still got the 1 bar on it. My plan is to put this right there, I think, and done. So let's get to it. We'll change this shape a bit with the grinder, weld it to it, and put a hole. Or I can put it over here, but I really like the idea of it right there, nice and simple. We are welded and got a hole in it. Let's go stick it on. I changed the spring while I was working on this to what should be the turbo spring. The other one will just be open the whole time this thing's at idle, any amount of vacuum. I think it's like 6 inches or something, it's open. So I put the heavier one in, hoping it only opens whenever it's got excess pressure. So vacuum's not just going to have this thing held open. Vacuum will have it right on the edge, and a little bit of boost pressure should just kind of push it. So I'm hoping we get a little more, a little more noise, maybe a little turbo flutter, not just. I also haven't set this throttle body for this cam, so we'll see if it runs. No. See if we got the right size. Also no. And again. Yep, T25, not T27. See how many attempts this is going to take. lighter spring in the blow-off valve actually worked out pretty good. Forgot the Jeep factory cam pulls lots of vacuum. This thing doesn't really. So even with the lighter spring, we're sitting closed and you just barely give it any throttle. It opens up, so it's right there on the edge of being the right spring. Now it only came with 2 spring options and it's not adjustable, so that'll be all right. But even when you're that'll work. So that'll work for the blow-off valve. I've got lines going to the wastegates now. I put a fitting on the back of the hat, ran it down, teed it. That should work. I'm gonna have to replace the oil lines soon. This one's already kinked. So, like I said, you get what you pay for, but that's alright. So the lines for the wastegates will eventually just follow the oil lines. So I think there's some caps I still need to put in right there. These are connected, so without this being blocked, we got no wastegate control really. So I'll get those plugged off and I will extend this harness to this plug. I'll extend that, I'll remake the alternator cable a little longer, and then I should be able to zip tie my fuse box over there off the exhaust housing. And then I think we'll be alright. I think after that I'll swap out the map sensor for the 1.75 bar Honda map sensor and change the tune in it and try to go down the road. But I'll have to be easy because the wastegates right now, I can move this one wire. That's what I'll do. I'll move that one wire there and just point the wastegate straight down so that at least it probably cooks that paint, but at least it doesn't light anything on fire. Right now it's going to kill all the stuff over here without being plumbed in. This one will probably be alright too. I'll probably just kick it up a little, just aim it up. I might just take the hood off too. It's not like it sticks out any more than it does with the giant scoop on it versus having the hood off of it. And make it easier, just keep an eye on things for the maiden voyage. I really need to get something to hold those ejector rails down before I forget. But either way, we're going to get to extending all this stuff. Got the fuse box zip tied over there. These are extended good enough. I'll get some aluminum from work and clean this up. I think I'll end up making a mount coming off one of these bolts, or two of them. Got the Honda map sensor rigged up. I didn't have the right size butt connector, so I used what I had because it's about to rain. I want to be able to drive it before I go out of town for work, and that's coming up real soon. So map sensor's hooked up. Now I'm just going to change everything in the computer to read that map sensor correctly, and we can go down the road, hopefully. A very short pull, but still. I've already driven it with the 1 bar in it and just didn't really get into boost. Just like to hear the whistle. Well, let's get to it. Well, that's probably going to be about it for this video. I've got it running, but my wideband's down, so it's too risky to try to tune this thing under boost without the wideband. The narrow bands only work for idle and very low load cruise, so I'm just gonna have to baby it. I'm gonna be out of town probably for the next week, so I'll order some more parts in, get the wideband back going. It's been on the fritz for a while. Get the wideband back going and start dialing it in. My pieces to dump the wastegates into the exhaust should be here by the time I get back for next weekend. I also got some spark plug boot covers and some header wrap. I'm going to wrap those downpipes. I'm already having issues with vapor lock because this is a returnless system, so we're going to have to fix that soon. Underhood temps have just gone way up because of all the extra heat, which makes sense, part of it. But I think I might throw this GoPro up on the dash or somewhere and go to the parts store and get some oil, and then we'll call it a day. Solid chance that we're going to start running out of fuel. I should have started the recording slightly before. It took me forever to get this thing started because of vapor lock. So for we're going to upgrade the pump. Probably going to go ahead and upgrade the fuel rails so that we can run a regular external regulator instead of the one in the tank. That should help cool the fuel as it's going through it. Should help for power, less detonation, and also gets rid of that vapor lock issue. I'm not too worried about this thing blowing up and the little hits, even if it's lean or rich. It's probably lean. Just in it and then let out. It's got forged pistons, it's got forged rods, factory crank. Right now it looks like it's aiming for about where we wanted. It's hitting about 78 kPa on the map, but it is not 78 kPa. 66 is atmospheric once you go 1.75 bar map, because on the JTEC you're limited to 105. So you have from 0 to 105. And if you quit thinking about it as kPa, think of it 0 volts to 5 volts. Doesn't matter what sensor you put in there, that's your swing, 0 to 5. So 5 volts or 105 kPa is 1.75 bars, about 11 psi. So at 80 we're running around, we're like 5-ish, 4 or 5 pounds, which is about what I want to run this thing at. I love the whistle, freaking awesome. Can't beat on it too hard. One, because it's falling on its face, and I don't know why. Because it might be rich, it might be lean. But the wastegates are still pointing at things that are important. This is the longest trip I've taken with it since it's had the turbos on it. There's a fire extinguisher in the bed, just in case. Love it. And looking over here, it's getting into boost about 2500, just revving it. Just first tipping in. Store. I'm gonna get in, get some oil, going with Patella, something a little heavier. I'll probably have to put an oil cooler on this thing eventually. And then we'll see if it does the vapor lock thing again, so you guys can know what that's like. Also, I still gotta figure out the power steering. I have no power steering right now. see if we get vapor lock.